All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining in. We are very excited. It's a very unique opportunity that we've got today. We are in the middle of a very tough time, a complicated time for students all across the country as they try to get into their dream business schools. And it gives me a lot of pleasure to bring the first webinar in the SoaRBeyond series sponsored by Reckitt Benckiser to you guys. This is going to help you guys get into your dream B school. What we are doing here is we are going to do a series of conversations with very senior people across the organization at RB to help you guys figure out how to navigate a very tough time, whether it is group discussions, whether it is the WOT test, or whether it is the personal interviews. We are going to have conversations around things, around businesses, around how people have managed a very tough time during the pandemic, and help you guys then respond in a structured, in a knowledgeable way to a variety of your questions that are going to come around the pandemic during your WOT PI processes. Before I introduce the panel, I want to tell you guys that there is context to this. The reason why we are doing this is because we feel that firstly, this is the first time that the whole process is happening online, and that is why a lot of people are very insecure, very worried about how to navigate this. And we thought that bringing very senior leaders to talk to you will give you some direction, some confidence, some succor as you go into a very tough time. Why is this properly called SoaRBeyond? Let's talk a little bit about that. In India, our education system is such that everything is put across to us as a zero-sum game. That if I have to get into something, I need to beat the other person. It has to be at the cost of someone else. However, the concept of SoaRBeyond is about us soaring beyond our abilities, us doing more than what we have been destined to do. A lot of times, our destiny is defined by what we do in our undergrad, how we performed. But if we perform well in our WOT PIs, we can overcome our original disadvantages, and that is why we are trying to help you do that through the SoaRBeyond series with RB. With this, I am going to introduce the panel before I hand it over to the moderator. The first member of the panel is Venkat Reddy. Venkat Reddy is the Regional Supply Director South Asia at Hygiene Home at RB. He's an alumnus of NITI, and we're going to ask him how he ended up spending so many years, 12 years out of campus at RB. He must be really in love with RB. Thank you so much, Venkat, for joining us.
Thank you, Kunj.
Great.
Thank you.
The next person I want to introduce is Ratika Mehra. She's the category marketing manager at Dettol. She's also spent a lot of years at almost 6 years at RB now, and she's a alumna of MDI Gurgaon. Thank you so much for joining, Ratika. Really looking forward to understanding the world of brands and marketing from you and how they have gotten impacted during the COVID.
Hi, Coach. Thank you.
The next person I want to introduce is Jaimin Gandhi. He's your sales guy. He's the regional head West for Reckitt Benckiser. He's been at RB for over 9 years. Jaimin, thank you so much for joining. He's an alumnus of Sailesh J. Mehta School of Management, IIT Bombay. Thank you so much for joining, Jaimin. Alright, the final person I want to introduce is not just a guest but also the moderator of the discussion that we are going to have. Her name is Ms. Sohini Dutt. She is the Regional HR Director South Asia for RB. Sohini has joined the organization over a year ago and she's had a lot of experience in the HR space. Sohini, thank you so much for joining, and I'm looking forward to hearing your insights and your understanding of what this organization has managed to do during the pandemic and what the students can learn from them as business students, as future managers themselves. So over to you, Sohini. Looking forward to the conversation. Cheers.
So, good evening, very, very warm good evening to all of you who joined for this webinar. I think it's a great opportunity to be be moderating this conversation on behalf of RB. And thank you, of course, to Kunj and the entire team for helping us have this platform where we can have this outreach and hopefully benefit you in some way in your there was in which lie ahead. So, as you would have noticed, all of us are from RB. And there is a certain privilege, of course, that comes with, talking at this forum on a conversation on COVID. Interestingly, the point where I would like to start from is basically our purpose and our fight, which is basically the reason why this company exists and what it really stands for. And this is a good point to start because everything that we are hence going to talk over the next 45 minutes or so is very closely related to this. So our purpose, the reason why we exist is to protect, heal and nurture in the relentless pursuit of a cleaner and healthier world. And our fight, hence, is about access. It's about making access to the highest quality hygiene, wellness and nourishment a right and not a privilege. With such a fight and this purpose and this fight guiding us, it's almost, it almost becomes, I think, a right of choice, so to say, to talk on this topic, because this was one of the many, I would say, instances or occurrences that has happened over years of human history, where our brands have become even more relevant and even more, important to our people. So this is what I would like to say when I'm talking about the context as to why we are here, what gives us, the platform, and of course, through the various questions, I would like to have our very experienced and I think everybody who's here on this platform, interestingly, has had a very big role, to play in ensuring that our brands actually reach our consumers. So Ratika looks after, head marketing for Dettol, and Chairman basically as part of the sales organization, which is, ensuring fulfillment. And Venkat, of course, is part of the supply organization to ensure that all of this comes together, that we continue to manufacture to reach. And all of these, I think over the last 1 year, every organization had their own set of challenges. We had, if not the same, but also fairly seemingly unsurmountable challenges, but we came through purely because of our purpose and our fight, which is very clearly articulated and very well understood by every employee of this company. And this is something that we deeply believe in. Of course, something that's also very dear to my heart. So, I would like to start now with a more open question, okay? And I would like each of the panel to respond to this. And my question is around the first signs of impact. So we all know that, the impact of COVID started being felt in phases. Okay, there was an early phase. There was actually a phase when people could not really understand the actual impact. So my first question is, what were the first signs of impact from the pandemic, and which industries were first hit? So anybody in the panel, if you would just like to unmute yourself and probably give an answer to this question.
Yeah, sure. So I would like to start. I still remember, the days of COVID, when this all started. It all started towards the end of January. Even though the COVID was not announced as a pandemic at that point of time, but however, the first case in India was registered towards the end of Jan. And over February, when we are interacting with our suppliers, when we are interacting with our customers, we felt that something is going on, and this is going to be serious. This is just not like another flu or something like that. But however, everything continued, and we thought that everything is well. But in the second week of March, when WHO announced COVID as a pandemic, as a global pandemic, that's when I think it started hitting hard, and people came to know about this disease and or maybe infection rather, and basically basically it's a public health issue. It has become a public health issue, and then people started realizing that the importance of social distancing, the importance of wearing masks, etc. And there was no lot of education at that point of time, and obviously the first thing comes to the mind is scare. And then we started seeing the impact coming in at our manufacturing facilities, distribution centers, and also materials coming from our suppliers. And then we have seen absenteeism going high. I'm not just talking specific to RB, but I'm more talking about the industry as a whole. But in terms of the industries which were hit hard, I think most of the industries were hit because of this. The only difference is the scale of disruption or maybe the scale of intensity towards that particular industry. And at different stages, I think the industries were hit because of different challenges. However, I think to start with, because this COVID is more related to social people contact, I think the industries that are hit hard were aviation, followed by retail sector, and then hotel businesses, I think, and food business as well. I think these were the businesses which were hit hard in the first couple of months. Especially when it comes to retail sector with continuous lockdowns in India. And malls and malls shutting down. There were not many challenges, like people were scared to go out and to go to the malls and to go to the retail outlets to do purchases. So I think aviation, retail, and hotel sectors were hit hard in the initial phases, but the COVID hasn't as hit hard, almost all the industries, as far as I know. So that's what I mean to the other families.
Absolutely right. I think, hi Ratka, I just love to give an overview on what immediately happened in terms of consumption. Because I think what we realized is with a lot of people very scared to venture outside, the first few industries, as Venkat is saying, were hospitality, restaurant business, and anything and everything where people were gathering. But I think in terms of consumption, just to, in terms of the media trend, what we realized when we look at social media is the conversations that went up around categories like germs and immunity. And I think this became sort of an harbinger of what's going to happen in the short to medium term, because anything and everything to do with hygiene became high priority. Anything and everything to do with public consumption in which involves socialization immediately dropped, and therefore you can think of various industries like that. And one thing that definitely came out of it was immunity building, and I think therefore while all industries were initially hit on account of the lockdown, the worst of it was everything to do with entertainment and public consumption and social gatherings. And one of the key things that really came out was anything and everything to do with immunity building. So within foods, there were categories like superfoods, etc., that got built out of nowhere. And of course, hygiene saw a massive boom soon after.
Thank you, Radhika.
So just adding what Venkat and Radhika were saying, probably the first signs for us was in late January, early February, when I was talking to some counterparts in other countries, and we realized that countries which were much ahead in terms of the COVID curve, our sales had really gone up, and the demand for Dettol products, the demand for hygiene products was shooting through the roof. While we were still not anywhere near to getting a lot of COVID cases, in the month of February, things were very near to normal in the month of February. I think it was in the 3rd and the 4th week of February where we really started getting a lot of demand for our hygiene products. I think it was more out of taking preventive measures. And that is where we really started realizing that, if pandemic is supposed to come to India, and if it really gets big, probably we started getting a feeling that Dettol will have to play a huge role probably in getting things under control, in basically ensuring hygiene and health of people. So, and I still remember 10th of March, we were in our Bombay office, we had planned for some reviews, etc. And we planned to go out for a drink in the evening, and when we went out, it was all empty. The restaurants were empty, the malls were empty. In fact, the roads were empty. Maharashtra government had come up with certain regulations pretty early than a lot of other state governments. So yeah, that is when reality really struck me that we are in for something huge. So yeah, entertainment, hospitality, travel, I think these were the industries where we really saw the impact very early due to COVID.
Thanks, Jamie. And during this time, how did you see RB react? For example, personally, I talk about the initial stages. The national lockdown was, I think, first introduced sometime in late March. But in February, I clearly remember we becoming cognizant of the big threat that it held. Not just for businesses overall and in terms of free movement, but what it would the consequences of this for our employees. And I clearly remember that one of the first things that we did was to actually restrict movement and to try proceeding on work from home and ensuring that we keep our employees safe. Pretty much connected also with our value system, which is to ensure that we put both our consumers and people first. I still remember that in the initial times we did have this dilemma that how do we ensure that we continue to keep our consumers and people first, when probably to serve our consumers we might have to have our employees actually step out of their homes. I think what I truly applaud RB as a global organization. I think we decided that we will put our people first and to ensure their complete safety and well-being. And I think we took a whole lot of steps to ensure that happens. I think we were one of the first organizations to ensure that from an infrastructure perspective, in terms of IT support, in terms of work from home facilities, they were all in place, provided for to our employees, and probably one of the first organizations to actually fully declare globally a work from home for all our employees, and to actually continue to stick to it through the years. So I think that was fairly phenomenal. Actually, we still continue to do, we're still in our homes, right? So that's remarkable. But I would still like to ask each one of you, which is that how do you think that the organization reacted when the national lockdown was declared, specific to your areas, or maybe you can also comment on for the organization overall?
I think we reacted in an extremely early way where people first. Which was extremely necessary at that point in time. That was something that was always expected out of RBS. And I think we were getting guidelines every second day, every third day about what needs to be done, what measures need to be taken in terms of work from home. I think the planning was in place much before the national lockdown was actually announced. So I can talk about the office that I work in. I mean, in a span of 2 to 3 days, we had made arrangements so that everybody can work from home very comfortably. And in fact, we didn't really feel the disruption even for a single day as far as the work was concerned. So I think it was all the functions coming together, ensuring that smooth work keeps on happening, ensuring that we take care of the safety of our people. We keep on giving them guidelines, we give them a choice, even before the national lockdown or even before complete work from home was announced. Choice was always given to the employees. So RB acted in a very nimble way and it adapted to the situations, almost on a daily basis. I think that was extremely important. That gave a lot of confidence to the employees.
Absolutely. I think as an employee, the guiding compass in terms of what we received as attention and what we did, I think it was clearly about putting people and consumers first. And people means the entire workforce, all of us. It was amazing how technology was put in place by the backend infrastructure IS team so that we could be seamlessly connected. Who are handling fear for yourself and the family, your own family, when you can't be behaving responsibly as a brand or people who are taking care of consumption especially of products which are going to be very important for preventative healthcare, right? I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that working for Dettol means that you're looking at initiatives which are about enabling hygiene for improved health, which meant that all of us in the marketing team or all our vendors, we needed to first feel safe ourselves, which I think happened very, very immediately and almost seamlessly, and we were enabled to be able to do the same. So for example, we were able to set that same practice. I remember talking to vendors, we wanted to do public service messaging. I think what was really important as a responsible brand was that we put out the right sort of messaging. So prevention, the right steps of hand washing, education on how soap works, on sanitizer, because some of these formats like sanitizer were not known to all. And the intent was not to do fear mongering, but to get the right information out. So in being enabled with the fact that we got our vendors to work from home, we got our agencies to work from home, and the whole thing was enabled along the way. I think I was extremely proud to be a member of RB during that entire process.
Thanks, Radhika. At this point, Venkat, I would like to ask you a very specific question. I think manufacturing and supply were probably one of the most hit because of COVID. And as you would have also experienced that, this ensuring that we continue to run, we continue to produce was, very, very critical for us as an organization. So I want to, ask you that how did we actually overcome some of the challenges that COVID posed, and maybe you could start by enumerating what were some of those challenges, and then talk about how did the organization actually overcome.
Absolutely, Shoni. I think this is more linked to the previous question as well. In fact, March 23rd, when the lockdown was announced, everything has come to standstill in India. Everything, like literally everything stops. It was not expected, and I don't think anyone was prepared to handle those circumstances because we have never seen this before. But yes, we have our fight on our hand, and our fight was to provide access to RB products to the greatest hygiene level, and also it's not easy to go back and open the factories or the warehouses because the factories were shut and warehouses were shut, and the workforce was not ready to come to the factories, and even there were government restrictions. I think what we did was we had two priorities at that point. Number one priority for us was to get the required licenses to operate our factories because that's something which is very, very important. And number two is to make sure that the workplaces or the factories or the distribution centers are accessible, or rather we are making sure that the places are safe for the people to come and work. So we need to demonstrate that, we need to get, because we have a responsibility towards our people who are coming and working at our facilities. So it's not an easy task because we were not prepared for that. But however, we were able to do that with the support from the people working at our factories. I should appreciate them because they are the real frontline leaders. In these conditions, I think people stepped out of their homes. They went and met the government officials and explained them the importance of opening our factories, because it's just not about doing business. It's also about making sure that the products are available to the consumers when they need it the most, like products like Dettol, Lysol, Harpic. These products are hand sanitizer. These products are definitely required because that was the case. When WHO announced this COVID as a pandemic, and they also announced that the only way to fight this pandemic was to make sure that everyone practice social distancing and everyone starts wearing masks and everyone practice these hygiene practices at their homes. And also their workplaces in case if they have to go and work because of the industries they work in. So I think our priority was absolutely in terms of making sure that the workplaces are safe for our people who are coming and working with us. And our second biggest priority was to make sure that we deliver products to our consumers, because the demand which we have seen was humongous in these times. We were not ready to deliver those kind of demands, but the ability of our planning team, or the ability of our customer service team, the ability of our manufacturing teams, I think everything has come into the picture at that time, and then we made sure that we deliver as many products as possible to the consumers. So going back to your question, Sohini, I think if you ask me what are the steps we have taken, we made sure that the work environment is safe, and then that encouraged people to come voluntarily and work in our factories, work in our distribution centers, so that we will be able to continuously run our production lines and deliver products to our consumers.
Yes, and I think if I do recall the specifics, it was actually about creating a safe ecosystem, right? Because we had to ensure from transportation to accommodation to social distancing to medical support to tie in with hospitals. To carrying out actually mass testing at some of our facilities. I think we've lived through all of those. I have a follow-up question now, because there were basically, in a way, two frontline heroes, right? There was once the supply organization and secondly the sales organization. And hence the question is to Jaimin that how did you see, I think COVID had an equal impact on the sales ecosystem because you're expected to be on the field and I would say we have gone through the whole year with everybody working from home. So what was your experience in ensuring that our products actually reach consumers?
Yeah. So, given the fact that even today, after the advent of modern trade and e-commerce, 80% of our business, the FMCG business category, is from the traditional trade. It's an extremely fragmented business. Our businesses are dependent on distributors, our salesmen, and we have a huge organization. We have around 3,000 salesmen in the country. We have more than 1,000 pilot sales representatives. We have around 1,000 distributors and 9,000 sub-distributors to work with. The entire system, the beauty of the entire system is that it functions well if everybody plays their role. Now, when COVID struck, obviously our channel partners, our distributors and our sub-distributors, they were also kind of worried about their own safety. It's a huge task in reaching out to each one of them individually. But at the same time, I think we've been extremely, they are just like our workers in the factory and our frontline leaders. I think our salesmen, our distributors, our sub-distributors, they were the ones who fought it out on the ground. Of course, taking all precautions, they opened their godowns, they ensured that people get the products because there was too much of pressure. Supplies were extremely thin because of the increased demands. All our forecasting had gone wrong. We had not forecasted for this kind of a demand. We were not prepared for this kind of a scenario. I can give you an example whereby, our distributors in Bombay, we used to get photographs on a daily basis where there are 100, 200 people standing outside the distributor premises. The distributor, struggling to get social distancing in place to come and pick up stocks. The distributors were trying to supply. We wish that they just said, if you can come and pick it up from our place, it would be better. And there were 200, 250, at times even 300 people who used to stand for hours together to get our products. That is where the entire distributor organization, our teams used to coordinate on phone from home. We used to tell our key retailers, we used to set timings. You please go at 3 p.m. You please go at 3:30 p.m. We will pack your stocks and keep it. You go with a change, exact money, so that the transaction does not take time. So we learned a lot of new methods. We also had to do with a lot of supply constraints because our supply chain was completely maxed out. They were running at a peak capacity, but that there was only so much that they could have done. What really happened at that point in time is that we unlearned a lot of things, and we also did a lot of things in a very short period of time, which otherwise would have taken years. For example, digital payments. We had a tough time moving a lot of our retailers to digital payments. They were just not ready to do it. But COVID basically brought that education into them, and they really started doing it. It's a matter of practice, and now there has been an impact which is there to stay for a longer period of time. Working from home and doing sales is something, it's paradoxical. Okay, it doesn't work. But then, as I said, that we unlearned a lot of things. The situation was such that we had to coordinate. So all of us became massive event managers, project managers, coordinators to get this big show running day in and day out, working with all other functions and working with our distributors. I can tell you for a fact that out of the 300 distributors that we have in West and around 1500 sub distributors, on an average, because we used to take a daily reporting who is working, who is not working, who is keeping their godowns open for more than 5 hours, for less than 5 hours, because we wanted to tell people, our phones were continuously ringing, we want stocks, where do we go? Government was calling us, district collectors were calling us, everybody was calling us. And on an average, all our distributors were shut for the entire COVID period. So the peak COVID period from March to May, despite of the lockdowns, for a period of 3 days on an average. That's about it. That too because they were not really sure how to get permissions. There was a lot of confusion in the rules. Every state had different rules. Every district, every city had different rules. So there was a lot of settling down that was required. But I think the right spirit of RB, which is having a lot of grit, having a lot of ownership, and believing in a lot of partnership. I think those were the 3 or 4 very key traits that helped us sail through this peak COVID situation.
Thanks, Damon. I think there's something that you alluded to, which I would like to now pick on that because it's fairly important and address this to Ratika. So there's been a massive shift in consumer behavior due to COVID. As per you, can you enumerate what were some of those shifts, and what does it mean, hence, to be a marketeer, and that to somebody who's in charge, who's basically looking after Dettol. So, what does it mean for as a marketeer, and of course, very closely associated in this fight, being associated with Dettol?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Soni, for that question, because I think nobody could have anticipated at all how things were going to work out. So if I were to break this down, like I said, because of the fact that consumers were extremely fearful, they were reaching out for trusted brands, and that's an immediate thing that we saw, something that Jemin was also mentioning, that because of the kind of heritage and trust that Dettol enjoys, consumers were wanting more information, consumers were reaching out for all our formats, and consumption of these hygiene products really shot through the roof. And if I were to try and give you some numbers, for example, certain hygiene products went up in terms of demand 340%. You can't forecast for that ever, right? We had a demand of, say, hand wash going from, in certain cases, 6% to 60%. Was the kind of increase that we were seeing in regular periods of time. So there was no way we could have anticipated or planned for it. But I think what was very important was how do we handle it? So first of all, we immediately moved our advertising funds to public service messaging, and that's where a lot of collaboration happened. So for example, we did public service messaging with celebrities, along with, in partnership with IMA, which is the medical association, trying to first of all get the right messages out. So for example, what was the right way of prevention? So use of sanitizer and hand wash was extremely important. The fact that soap is extremely efficacious in doing it. So we created one of the first home shot demo videos. So we focused on a demo literally to explain in very, very basic terms as to how is it that the entire process of prevention happens by making sure that the right technique is used. We did very interesting things like, we worked with our partners to make sure that the entire video was shot completely at home, which meant that people were collaborating using the best of cameras that they could get their hands on within their home, getting their family members to shoot scenes, and it was all stitched together by editors who were sitting at home and working. I mean, I remember we were recording and listening to lines on our phones and trying to gauge the tonality and the messaging, because we were all used to working with studio professionals, and that just was not possible, nor were we wanting to put anybody at risk. So first, consumer behavior, like I mentioned, and second, messaging. And how these were very closely interlinked was that all our messaging needed to be right in terms of keeping people calm. We did definitely, as a responsible brand, did not want to be about fear mongering at all. And hence, I mean, even if you look at one of the big campaigns that we did, which was about the right technique and duration of hand washing, which was a 20-second jingle. It was done in a very interesting, fun, engaging way, but not at all about inciting any kind of fear amongst consumers. So those were some of the massive shifts that we had to immediately undertake in terms of the way we work.
Thank you so much, Radhika. So I guess this is what we have time for.
Sorry. Yes, I have a question for you. Shoini, I have a question for you. And we talked about the impact on supply chain, the impact on marketing, on sales. There is one area where there has been a massive impact because of the pandemic, and which is the whole people space, the HR space. And I wanted to understand from you, what were some of the biggest people trends you saw emerging in this very tough, very complicated time, and how do you think RB adapted its people strategy in response to the pandemic?
Thank you so much for that question, Kunj. I think this has been one topic, or the conversation on which has evolved through the year, because people's understanding of what this meant and the way it's impacted our lives has actually unraveled and become richer. There's so many conversations. I remember, last year, July, when people were trying to understand what this will do to people's lives and how it will impact organizations. So it's not for nothing that these times are called the new normal. And the reason why that is so is because the last 1 year, I would literally say, has been a process of unlearning for organizations and new learning, where we have literally realized that what else is possible, and when faced with such unsurmountable challenges, how resilient an organizations and people can be. So our people strategy, so to say, remains consistent with our value system and what RB as an organization believes in, but there are certain adaptations, or I would say new learnings that have come along the way, and there are some of this couple of stuff that I would like to probably talk about in this forum.
Please.
So see, the most important thing, like I had earlier stated, is that our value system places people first, along with the consumers, right? And that remains at centerfold. It's basically been our North Star when we have taken any decision. So one, I would say, key parameter which is faced, which is basically, the basis of the strategy is to ensure that, we stay true to that. Okay, sorry. There's an alarm going on in the background.
Due to an emergency,
Okay, no worries, Shoini, will come back to you. Oh, it's stopped? It's stopped, okay.
I guess I'll have to pause here. Ankita, would you like to go ahead and answer this question while I figure out why there's an alarm going off in the background?
due to an emergency.
Yes.
Sure. Hi everyone.
Hi. Ankita, give us a little bit more perspective on the experiences of summer interns and management trainees as well. Because they also joined at a complicated time, and they make a very important part of your people strategy. So tell us about that as well.
Thank you so much for the question. So yes, of course, I think when the whole COVID thing struck, it was, like you all mentioned, around the middle of March. April is when the summer internships start. So I think we would have spent a lot of sleepless nights to just figure out how to make it happen. And the one thing I think that we promised ourselves and we stuck to that is that we're not going to do any delays to joinings. We're not going to rescind any offers. Everything goes as is, as smoothly as possible. And for an organization such as ours, especially since we were anyway so bogged down with the way the business needed to be, brought up to a certain level of operations, I think as an organization, we came together at that point to make sure that there is absolutely no impact in terms of how the summer internship process and then subsequently the management trainee program operates. We ran the entire thing virtually, making sure people are connected, giving projects where they are not required to really step out. but also giving them the opportunity to deliver on those projects. So in RB, we say one thing, that you never work on academic projects. It's always projects which are
Real world.
real world and real business problems to solve
Right,
for.
right.
I think all our trainees can go back and be rest assured that they worked on real business problems. And we've had more than ever higher number of PPO conversions, even in a year. I mean, more than a normal year. Even though we went through a virtual route, even though it was very difficult to assess beyond a point because the person hasn't really seen RB,
Right.
we put in a lot of interactions with leadership so they understand. But you can never, of course, completely replicate the real world experience through a virtual environment, but we tried our level best. Summers was quite an exciting experience because of this. Through the management training program, we of course ensured that people don't step out, they get virtual projects for the longest time, and they're able to learn, absorb about the organization while staying safe and
Right.
staying with the safety of their homes.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ankita. Shoini, I actually wanted to ask you a follow-up question before we let you go. I know you are a little in. You need to step out. So just a quick question. Are you okay to take a question right now? Has the alarm stopped?
Yes, it has. So I
Okay.
came back. So
Great,
without the
perfect. Great.
uh,
So I just want to ask you, Shoini, there are two sides to the experience of the employee, right? In this kind of a time, one is the actual day-to-day working has to suddenly change. Now everything is happening online, and we spoke about that. Then there's the whole mental side. You're constantly feeling that you're nearing the end of the world. You don't know what's going to happen. People are losing jobs all around you. Your work, what you're doing, is it relevant also today anymore? What's going to happen tomorrow, you don't know. That uncertainty leads to a lot of stress and fear for the future. So how does an HR team, the people function in the organization like RB, handle that kind of a situation within the team?
So, to very crispy answer the question, Kunj, it's two ways. One is actually was something that I was going to continue talking about before alarm started beeping
Right.
all over the building. Is to and which is very critical part of our people strategy, and something that RB has taken on globally and very seriously, is to actually focus on well-being. And
Hmm.
well-being is a very broad concept which looks at physical, emotional, mental, and all of these elements put together.
Right.
So this organization, what I have seen, I think in terms of the focus that we have on driving well-being, ensuring well-being, whether it be in terms of providing access to specialized services, provide specific counseling support, and
Right.
even to the extent of ensuring that there are regular check-ins with employees. We actually have a helpline number, and we have specialists that our employees can reach out to when they start feeling stressed, which we completely recognize, because this is one of the big fallouts of operating the way that we do.
Right.
Let me tell you that operating in this environment is not easy. It's a fairly stressful experience. And I know that a lot of our employees actually do face burnouts to a certain extent, because you're actually sitting in front of the laptop with very little any other form of stimuli, right? And it's
Yes.
all virtual, and you're staring at a laptop the whole day. So that's one. The second is basically linked to again, part of the strategy, people strategy, but also in terms of how it comes alive, which is basically the culture of your organization, and the kind of support or connect that you build in as part of such a strategy.
Right.
We have we do have virtual conferences, so to say, but check-ins, managers engaging very frequently with their team members. We have tried as much as possible to replicate a normal work life. You have R&Rs, you have town halls, you
Hmm.
have check-ins, you have all of that which you would have done in a normal physical working environment, replicated virtually.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shoini. Thank you so much for your time. thank you for moderating this discussion as well. To the audience, I want to say, and we are going to take your questions now. Before that, there are a few things that I want to mention here. First is that, on Inside IM, we conduct something that we are very proud of, which is called the brand perception study, where we understand how do the different employers all across the country are perceived by the students. And it gives me a lot of pleasure to mention that RB has won the number one position as far as India's most desirable recruiters challenge is concerned within the hygiene space. The RB has been recruiting and engaging with campuses for years, and some of you will make it to some of the top campuses in the country, and you'll see them there, and you'll see the kind of work they are doing. You'll also see your alumni, your seniors working there, and the kind of work they are getting to do. So definitely check out RB on campus as well. It's always good to go in prepared before you hit your campus as well, doing your research about your dream recruiters, understanding what is it that they are looking for and how can you prepare for that. You'll find a lot of content on RB, on Inside IM, on our channel, so do check that out and be well prepared for landing your dream company once you enter B School. Now, as far as the discussion is concerned, guys, again setting context here, this discussion was important because there will be questions around this, around supply chain design during a crisis, not just a pandemic but any kind of crisis. If there's a lockdown in the country, how are you going to manage supply chain at that point of time? How are you going to do marketing if there is a sudden change in technology? These are the kind of questions that are going to arise in your B School interviews, in your B School GDs, WATs, and the discussion that we've had today with very senior managers will be the guiding light when you are making these points. You can make very theoretical, very airy-fairy points, or you can make real-world business points that are going to impress the panel. And what we've discussed today is going to help you make those kinds of brownie points come D-Day for you guys. Now, I'm going to move to the questions. There are a few questions for you guys. Some of the things have emerged from what you guys have said, and basis that there are some questions that our audiences have been asking in the chat. The chat is abuzz with a few questions. So Harsh Singh has asked a very fundamental question. He's talking about specifically the import-export space. However, within supply chain, how has import-export domain been handled during the lockdown? So Venkat, if you could give us some light, throw some light on that, it will be useful.
Yeah, sure, Kunj. As you know, in the middle of the COVID, even the domestic transportation has been impacted. You can understand the kind of impact it had on imports and exports.
Right.
So transportation and logistics is an area which is impacted a lot because of the COVID. Specific to imports and export, there were many challenges. The first is in terms of customs clearances, because it also requires a lot of efforts for the people to go and start working at the ports. It's not easy. There were some restrictions in terms of people going and doing that, but government has taken measures to make sure that these activities continues, because India is predominantly high on imports and exports.
Right.
But the biggest impact we had on during this pandemic is not just the social distancing or delays in terms of connecting, etc. But in the middle of all the crises, the crude prices also have started going up.
Yeah.
The commodities versus last year, the commodities are up by almost like 50% already. The crude oil is already at $56 per barrel versus 35, 40s 6-7 months back. So what happened was, because of this, number one, the global freight has gone up. Number two is, because of the COVID, there is a huge demand on products, certain raw materials which are required, or which goes as input material, or more rather as a feedstock, which goes into making of sanitizers, or making of floor cleaners, or making of products like hand washes, etc.
Right.
So unfortunately, in India, the manufacturing was not geared up to do or to meet that kind of scale. So there's a lot of dependence on imports, and the priority were given to those containers. And the global freight market has gone up, like the cost has gone up. So how do we manage that? I think we'll be able to manage in these situations. Some companies are better prepared than others to mitigate the impact, and some companies are better prepared than others to respond to the event. And some companies are scrambling. Frankly speaking, we have seen some companies are not able to meet the demand, or not able to manage the crisis at all. So the key is maintaining good relationship with the suppliers comes handy during those times. and then making sure that your strategic priorities are aligned with your supply strategic priorities is very, very important. And then making sure that having a very good supply chain ecosystem will always help you in these crises. So that's something we learned as an organization. That's something I learned as a supply chain manager. That's something which helped us to manage these imports and exports during this crisis.
Sure. Okay. Next question is for Ratika. The question is from Ayush Jajodia. He's asking, if you could, Ratika, give us a specific example that would give us a more specific view on how you handle that. So, how does a pandemic affect marketing plans, and what changes do you make in your approach? So, you spoke about, for example, how the shooting of ads, etc., changed. But at a marketing plan level, I'm sure that suddenly Dettol became more important than it used to be. Of course, it is very important, but people got serious about it for the first time. For years, the government talked about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Nothing happened, not as much as it would have happened because the pandemic really forced people's hand. So, in these kinds of situations, how do marketing plans evolve? Because you typically have an annual operating plan. This is what you're going to do. This is when you're going to do this X, Y, Z. How did that change? And take us to that moment when the team suddenly got together and they were like, okay, guys, we need to fix this. We can capitalize on this rather than getting capitulated by it. So, what did you do about that?
Correct. Absolutely right, Kunj. Very good question. So we obviously set up a annual calendar, right? There are so many initiatives that are planned. There are NPDs, innovations that are planned in a certain way. There are certain price changes that are planned in a certain way. And the whole thing is well orchestrated and planned out, right? And especially for parts of our category, which are also under price control. So it was suddenly a very dynamic situation where decisions needed to be taken with not that much data available, and and there were decisions that needed to be made where it maybe went against your P&L, right? So a couple of key things that I would like to point out is, for example, the annual calendar would have had a certain set of innovations and a certain set of price changes. But when we realized that Dettol had become the most sought after brand, the first realization was, and not a great realization, it wasn't a good feeling, that the years that we had spent trying to educate on hygiene, a pandemic had done that task very, very quickly, right? Which sort of cut short the kind of job that we needed to do on education, but then focus shifted. So we needed to tell people about, like I said, what was the right preventive measures to take, and therefore what was the right technique, duration of hand washing, etc. But that also meant, in terms of the kind of constraints that supply was feeling, how we were going to plan our portfolio. So for example, if an entire initiative was planned on antiseptic liquid, on driving consumption, because that's one of the products where there are certain cohorts which drive massive consumption, like new moms who use it for washing nappies to 20 other things at home, right? However, for us, what was really important, that when so many people needed the product, we had the right penetrative packs and maximum distribution of it, which meant that there was a decision that let's not make maybe the large 1 liter bottles, which, because we had restricted supply, let's make the small packs so that more and more people can take it, get it at a lower price point. Now, these were financial implications, but I think we were constantly led by what's the right thing to do. For example, another thing, I think partnerships came through beautifully. We worked with some of our partners amongst the entire VSI initiative, and we actually donated more than 10 million soaps. Now, again, it was more important that we felt good about what we were doing, because anyway the results would follow, right? We were getting great results in terms of our P&L, etc. But it was also very important to believe in the purpose and to be very clear as to what is going to be guiding our actions. And I think that was something right from the leadership to all of us were extremely certain of. And that was great, because as a team we came together as a brand. And I don't think there were any questions asked. Nobody was going to turn around and say, no, actually, we'll get more net revenue realization per large bottle, right? So let's do that. Because everybody knew what was the right thing to do.
Right. Perfect. Okay, guys, before I ask the last question to Jaimin, I want to just tell everyone that the SoaRBeyond program has only started with today's webinar. There are a lot of legs yet to go for the SoaRBeyond program. One of the things that we are going to do immediately after this webinar, and you'll see the link for that in your chat as well, is that we are going to do a quiz. we feel that anything that you want to learn, if you're preparing for your what PIs, you need to be interacting with content rather than just sitting back and watching. So you guys have asked a lot of questions, and we appreciate that. Now we have a set of questions for you. There is a quiz that the SoaRBeyond program has created, which will help you think about different subjects, different areas that you need to touch upon before you go for your GD-PIs. So that quiz is being floated right now in your chat. So please check it out. What that quiz will also do is that if you perform well, you will also get certification and goodies from the House of RB. So please definitely participate in the quiz. Write in with your answers. See where you stand. What are the things that you need to work on, and also in the process win certain prizes and certificates from the House of RB. With that, I'm going to go to the last question, and this question is to Jaimin. Jaimin, for the last mile sales guy, this has been a very tough time. You are stuck at home. The whole enjoyment, the excitement about sales is to go out in the field, talk to distributors, talk to retailers, understand the consumer, understand how the point of sale is, all those sorts of things. And he didn't get to do that in that period of time. So as a sales leader, how do you motivate the team, and also how do you train them to adapt to technology? Because a lot of them are also very low in the hierarchy and wouldn't have gotten that kind of exposure to technology until it became, paramount for them to be using it.
Yeah. So thanks, Kunj, for the question. So I think RB is actually if you look at the sales ecosystem of RB, is actually very, very tech driven already. So even the last mile salesman working with RB would be taking orders on an app. He doesn't really need to really use a piece of paper and a pen to take an order. So that was already there. But yes, you're right that not the fun, but the real sales is going out in the market and actually, selling your products, because there's a difference between selling and difference between just, writing down an order.
Right.
But I think it was initially it was difficult, and yes, it's no fun, being at home and just coordinating the effort. But I think over a period of time, so maybe say initially 10-15 days, it was all very confusing. Nobody really knew what is happening, and everybody was just going through the motions, and it was all going in a flow. But then I think people really started adapting to it. Slowly, people started making phone calls. We had separate formats where they were able to take orders, because initially, a lot of these guys. So we what we did is that they used to have specialized tabs on which they used to take orders. Typical to the RB style, as soon as COVID struck and all, we really rapidly made a change in a period of 15 to 20 days, whereby they were then able to download an app and take order on their phones. So they started taking orders on their smartphones, and the system is synced with the distributor system.
Right.
So while you are not there physically, you are still doing half the process of what you do out there on the field. So that is one part to it. I think the challenge really came in basically, selling what we want to sell. So yes, there was a latent demand for certain products, our entire Dettol portfolio. But we also have the other half of our business, which is basically the non-Dettol part, as we like to call it, within our organization. So that is something that we really had to, which was not very easy to sell. And there are certain brands which are very seasonal in nature, and who had their peak demand periods, intersecting with the COVID period. Say, for example, a brand like Dermicool. It's a seasonal brand, sells in a period of 3 to 4 months, and that's about it. We really do our numbers on the brand in a period of 5 months. So those are the kind of brands that we really had to push through in the market, and all our conversations were based on how we can really generate traction for those brands as well, how we can really push our brands to the retailers. So I think that was a very interesting kind of a thing. We started looking at our businesses very differently. Again, having said that, I must say that our ease of doing business in smaller towns was much higher than doing it in metro towns, because the restrictions were very high.
The lockdowns were stricter in the bigger cities.
The lockdowns were very strict. So I think in smaller towns, that is where we started focusing.
Right.
That's where we started giving increases. And I think, I'm sorry, the light has gone off. But I
No
guess
stress, no stress. Jevin,
yeah.
finish your thought so that we can then move forward.
Yeah.
No stress.
So
Yeah.
I think we also utilize this time in strengthening our sales system. Actually, opening
Right.
rich outlets, selling more range, selling more variety, training our salespeople. So there were a lot of training programs that we did, which was actually very easy. Earlier training, say 300 people in a particular geography.
Yeah. It used to be difficult. Now you found a tech solution to it. Yes.
Yeah, now we found a way. We had Microsoft Teams, we had Zoom. Let's do a training of 300 people, and we used to do some sort of a training every week, and that was quite fun. I mean,
Right.
interacting with all the people, making it interesting, and actually people ending the day with learning something useful. So I think it was about adapting and unlearning a lot of things at the same time. Trying to make the best use of these circumstances.
One of the things that's going to come through because of the pandemic is that it's going to separate good managers and bad managers very clearly. The ones who've been able to innovate, the ones who've been agile are the ones who would have survived and who would have done well. There has been no one who has been exactly standing where they were before the pandemic. You either moved several steps forward or you moved several steps backward. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, one last question, and I want to ask this question to Ratika. I know, Shohini, you're in a hurry to be somewhere, so thank you so much for being here. I've been asked to ask a question to Ratika, so I'm going to do that. Students have been insisting that we ask this question, so I'm going to take that. Thank you, Shohini, for being here. You may drop off. Thank you so much.
So much. Best of luck to everybody who's listening in to this webinar, and I hope sometime soon our paths cross. So with that, I will bid you all goodbye and over back to you, Kunj. Thanks.
Thanks, Shohini. So my question is for Ratika. Ratika, what role has innovation played? So this is a question that a lot of students have asked. What role has innovation played as far as marketing is concerned?
Very good question, Kunj. A massive role, because I think all the standard behaviors or standard usage practices were very much tossed out of the window. So I think what was important the moment we got through the first couple of months was to also then look at how is it that we could ease this entire new practice in terms of making yourselves stay safe. So lots of innovation came in very, very quickly. I think we had to come together as a team and crunch the entire process of creating an NPD from maybe a 2-year process to a span of 2, 3, 4 months wherever it was possible, where there were complications like licenses or there were complications like certain testing protocols that had to be done. It would have been 6 months. But what was beautiful is how the whole team came together, and there were so many formats that we were able to bring for consumers' convenience. For example, we've recently launched wipes. We've launched an entire disinfectant trigger. There is a global product that we have called disinfectant spray, which just was one of the first products where we had the entire COVID claim that it was an aerosol spray that you could just spray onto any surface, and that surface was COVID free. And the massive demand that we saw for it initially, there was so much work that had to be crunched. So innovation really played a critical role, and I think what's definitely that highlights is that consumption patterns and behaviors have completely changed, and that innovation cycle will have to continue at that rapid pace, because we don't know exactly how it's going to finally settle down, right? We don't know exactly which behaviors are going to be here to stay. So yeah.
Alright, with that I'm going to end this webinar. Ratika, Venkat, Jaimin, Ankita, everybody, thank you so much for being here and taking out time to guide students in a tough period. We appreciate you guys, the insights that you've brought in, and also the kind of work you guys have done within your organization in the last year. Thank you so much for that. To the students, guys, stay with the SoaRBeyond program with us. If you want to crack your dream B school, I can guarantee you that we will be able to help you in a lot of ways to prepare you for a very tough phase of interviews and GDs and what's. With this, I'm going to end this. Do check out the quiz link in the description, in the chat. It will be there everywhere. Also for students who will watch it later, check it out in the description and take the quiz. It will help you prepare better. With that, I'm going to end this. Thank you so much, everybody. Cheers. Bye.